The European Union has apologised to Italy after letting it down at the beginning of the coronavirus crisis and ignoring pleas for aid. President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, addressed the European Parliament overnight.
Yes, it is true that no one was really ready for this. It is also true that too many were not there on time when Italy needed a helping hand at the very beginning. And yes, for that, it is right that Europe as a whole offers a heartfelt apology.
All right, let's bring in Sky News Outsiders host Rowan Dean via Skype. Well, this goes to the whole argument, doesn't it, Rowan, about the importance of sovereign nations, which had been waning for the last few decades, the preponderance of the globalists who say, you know, it was all about a world order run by the UN and all these other bodies that have been found wanting. The EU itself also has been found wanting, and all those Brits who were not so sure that Brexit was the right thing to do, I don't think they'd be questioning that now.
Absolutely, Peter. And a terrific interview there with Thomas Moore. That was great, Peter. Look, the EU is completely dysfunctional. It serves no purpose. This was the first big test, really, since the EU was set up. They failed on every level they've had. Immigration's been a disaster. All they do are a bunch of bureaucrats who sit around in Brussels taxing the bejesus out of everyone throughout Europe. They have failed the first big test. Therefore, they've served no purpose. They are not fit for the job they're supposed to do. If you can't even help organise, control a pandemic in the different countries of Europe, get the right equipment to the right people, help each countries. What happened, Peter? Immediately the coronavirus hit. Each country buckled down to itself. They asked the EU for help. The EU is incapable of providing them with any help. Therefore, it is not fit to purpose. I would hope we now see the end of the EU, different countries now saying this was a joke, it was a waste of our money, we shouldn't have done it. Now, Peter, I wanted to just say one thing on that. I loved your editorial about climate change and you know, the fact that it's kind of disappeared now that there's a genuine crisis. And the flip side of that, Peter, is exactly what you're just talking about with the EU. The EU has spent the last decade banging on about climate change, gender diversity, inclusion, open borders. These have been the priorities of the mandarins in Brussels. They've even said, for example, to Australia, if you want to do a trade deal with the EU, you have to cut emissions by this amount, you've got to sign the Paris Agreement, you've got to have the right diversity stuff. All this left-wing socialist garbage, which has been the focus of the EU, the focus of the United Nations, the focus of the World Health Organization, the focus of the World Bank, the list goes on and on and on. They're all focused on climate change and this other socialist garbage. What happens? A genuine crisis comes along that they should have all been prepared for, that they should have been, their sole function would be to get us through it, and they have all completely failed. And people like you, Peter, and myself and others who've been saying now for a decade that these supranational organizations are nothing but a siphon on our money and do nothing to help us as nations have been shown to be right. So goodbye to all the Kevin Rudds and all these characters, the Helen Clarks, who want to swan around in their different places in Geneva and New York and all the rest lording it over us. They have all categorically failed. Get rid of a lot of them.
All right, we'll take a lesson from Captain Tom Moore, a bit of backbone. Will we have the backbone to stand up to some bodies? I know Dave Sharma, yes, he's a Liberal Member of Parliament now, former diplomat though. He says the World Health Organization must be reformed. I have to say again, I said this last night, money talks. Trump, at least, by withdrawing the funds or putting them on hold to be absolutely correct, has brought this issue to the fore, and they'll drag them around the table if they haven't got their billions coming in. We're saying, well, they've got to be reformed, sure. We don't think that they're working as well as they should be, but we'll keep signing the checks. So we got it wrong.
Totally. You don't reform a place, you fire them. We've got to start thinking like, you know, business thinks, or certainly proper, successful businesses think. They had one job to do. They failed. It's like if I'm running a shop and your job is to bring me cheese crackers every week, and instead you bring me aluminium wing nuts. I don't say, you know what, let's sit down and have a discussion about reforming you so that you bring me cheese biscuits. I say, you're fired, goodbye, go away, I don't want to see you again. I will now bring in the people who will do what I'm paid for, which is to bring me the cheese biscuits. That's how the real world operates. Now, Dave Sharma, you know, he's an ex-diplomat, I'm sure he means well, but sitting around a table with these same clowns who've taken $60-odd million off us, they're scam merchants. They've taken a fortune off the Americans. They've taken a fortune off other countries. You can't reform a mob like that. You fire them, and then we start again, and we go, okay, what do we really need to suit our purposes, where our 60 million could actually do some good for us? And maybe we go and chat to the Americans and the Brits, maybe through the G20, and we say, let's set up a new body. But you fire this bunch of clowns because they're useless.